Boebert watch. More out-of-this-world action from the Colorado Congresswoman. Her grandstanding on UFOs was a return to ridiculous form. On November 13th, U.S. Representative Lauren Boebert was back at work, cracking wise with jokes both intended and not. During much of the election season, she kept a relatively low profile in Congress, trying not to remind voters in the 4th Congressional District just how embarrassing she's been to her current constituents in CD3. The gambit paid off for Boebert, and her overt carpetbagging campaign was successful. On November 5th, she was elected to continue to represent Colorado in the U.S. House, albeit from CD4 on the other side of the state. But now she was back in prime crazytown form, speaking up at a House Committee on Oversight and Accountability hearing regarding unidentified anomalous phenomena, exposing the truth, in which she talked about unspecified rumors that have come up the hill of a secretive project within the Department of Defense involving the manipulation of human genetics with what is described as non-human genetic material for the enhancement of human capabilities, hybrids. She went on to ask the 4 impaneled experts if they'd ever heard of something like that. All 4 responded no. Boebert had begun using her 5 minutes allotted for questions with this. May as well go out and say it. The Earth is flat. Birds are government drones, and we've never set foot on the moon. And Joe Biden received 81 million votes in the 2020 election. Not only was the joke unfunny, but it was difficult to tell how many of those conspiracy theories she actually buys. Boebert is now heading into a 3rd term of federal service after the highlights of the first 2 were mostly lowlights. The very things she was running from in switching districts, the very things she wanted voters to ignore so they'd re-elect her to Congress. In case anyone's forgotten Boebert's real record for Colorado representation, here are 10 of her most notable political moments. In the relatively halcyon days before Boebert was first elected, back when the GOP was slightly more rational and she was just a failing restaurateur focusing more on guns than good grub, she dabbled at least in the QAnon stuff. "Everything that I've heard of Q, I hope that this is real," she said on a Pro-Q podcast in 2020. Because it only means that America is getting stronger and better, and people are returning to conservative values. Boebert posted this on Twitter the morning of the January 6, 2021 insurrection, even before the crowd surged into the U.S. Capitol, disgracing the very foundation of American government. There was a brief ethics investigation, but like many of the questions surrounding one of the darkest days in our nation, it was quickly pushed aside in the interest of moving ahead. But Boebert's position on fomenting sedition are still clear and present. The Federal Election Commission was busy with Boebert back in the spring of 2021, looking into issues like a flat-out, unbelievable mileage reimbursement of well over $20,000 paid from election funds to Boebert's personal accounts for supposedly driving an average of 175 miles per day during the months of the pandemic when very little was happening outside of people's homes, to which Boebert was clearly not going. Then came issues with Venmo payments from campaign funds to cover rent and utilities on her faltering restaurant shooter's grill. And then came news that her then-husband Jason had made an unreported $478,000 the previous year working as a consultant for an energy firm, while Boebert sat on the House Natural Resources Committee. None of these issues spoke well of Boebert's faithfulness to government, fair play, or the truth, none of which American voters as a majority seem to care about much anymore. For Christmas 2021, Kentucky Representative Thomas Massie sent out a Christmas greeting featuring his heavily armed family in front of a bedecked Tannenbaum, with the joyous message, "Santa, please bring ammo." Boebert quickly upped the ante with a photo of her with her kids, likewise holding many guns. "I promise not everyone in Kentucky is an insensitive asshole," wrote Representative John Yarmouth, Kentucky Democrat, in response to Massie's card. Same for Colorado, Representative Yarmouth. Same. What could be more statesmanlike than screaming accusations at a ceremonial presidential address? In March 2022, Boebert teamed up with gal pal Marjorie Taylor Greene to yell interruptions at President Joe Biden. Sure, disrespect is almost a staple at presidential addresses now, at least when the POTUS is a Democrat, thanks GOP. But it was Boebert who helped to start the unfortunate trend. Boebert and Greene would have a notable falling out not too long after this event, with Greene calling Boebert a little bitch. But then the bitch